Thanks for your patience, everyone. I'm going to jump right in. We have some other board members who are joining us just a bit late, but I think we can dive into the business at hand. For those of you who are joining us from the community and the public, thank you. We appreciate you sitting in and being a part of what is going on. That could be exciting for the historic Albina neighborhood as we embark on the Rose Quarter Improvement Project. For those, there will be an opportunity for public comment at some point in this meeting. So be ready to dial the number there on your screen, 971-247-1195. There's also a number there if you're having some technical difficulties where our team will be able to assist you with that. Next slide, please. Today, we're going to give an opportunity for public comment. We'll also have a project update from our director. And then we'll have an opportunity to kind of recap what we have heard from this board. At that point, we will have an exciting conversation with the urban design team as we imagine what could be in some of the infrastructure design. And then we're going to open up a conversation in regards to restorative justice as it relates to this Rose Quarter project and how that affects the update to the HAB charter. And then we will adjourn with some next steps. Next slide, please. Again, sharing with you today, Dr. Holt and I will be co-facilitating the conversation. You all should be well familiar with our principles of agreement. Your voice matters. I know I can always count on HAB members to speak their authentic truth. Listen for understanding as we're all speaking from a place of passion about a community that we love and we want to see grow and flourish. And to make sure that you are dealing with issues and not people. We often know that sometimes when there's passion involved, there may be some elevation, there may be some animation, but it may be a little uncomfortable. That's okay. We still ask for you to remain respectfully engaged. And as we all know, there are a lot of things that have happened over the course of time in this community. As it relates to infrastructure projects, et cetera. But we ask you to expect and accept non-closure. We can't solve everything today, but it's our goal to work collaboratively together to move this needle and the project forward. Next slide, please. Before we get into the public comment, I just want to share with those in the virtual space with us tonight and other HAB board members. Pastor Richard Probasco has resigned his position with the HAB. He is such a light to me, such an influence, has been for the majority of my life, very involved in restoration of this community. I want to thank him for his service and helping us get to this point. He has let me know that he is still in the wings and is available to us and to me, and is still fighting alongside us to make sure that there are opportunities for Black and Brown folks in this community to flourish, even as a result of this project. So I just wanted to publicly thank him for his service, for his commitment to this process, and if he's watching, let him know that he will be sadly missed, but we appreciate that he has responsibilities there at New Song Church and other projects that he's working on in the community that are taking some more of his time. So I just wanted to appreciate him for his investment in this process. At this time, Natalie is going to help me facilitate the public comment. So Miss Natalie.
Thanks, Erica. I just put the public comment information on the screen here. I think everyone is pretty familiar with this process, but if not, the numbers are shown on the screen, and you will dial the number, enter the meeting ID and passcode, and you'll be admitted into the virtual waiting room, and we will see you there, admit you into the meeting, and invite you to make a public comment. And I am not seeing any members of the public wishing to make a public comment at this time.
We'll just give maybe another 60 seconds before we move forward. Just know that we want to hear from you. We appreciate your thoughtfulness, your input, and there are many other ways for you to leave comments or ask questions. There is a website at i5rosequarter.org. There's also a telephone number that you can call to leave comment. So we encourage you to do that. We'll be at this work for some time, so there'll be other opportunity. But seeing no hands, Natalie, thank you. We can move forward in our agenda. With that, I'm going to turn it over to our director, Ms. Megan Channel.
Thanks, Erica, and good afternoon, HAB members. It is great to see you this afternoon. I've got a fairly brief project update for you today, but really just wanted to make sure that we're following up on a few items that I know you've brought up and are interested in, really related to the intergovernmental agreements, particularly with our local agencies and with the governor's office to advance the work of the Hybrid 3 highway cover design. Also want to give an update on the project's initial finance plan that we are deep in the throes of putting together. And then also an update on ODOT's new equitable engagement compensation program, which will apply to you as the Historic Albina Advisory Board. So I'll start off just really quickly with an update on the partner agreements and specifically the governor's intergovernmental agreement with the local agencies. So I think you've heard this update before, but there is an agreement that is in place and being worked on, which is really intended to codify the agreements and the discussions that were made with the stakeholders during the summer meetings with the governor's office. So it's an agreement with the regional and local governments, and that is out for their review. And again, the intent here is to address the conversations that were had around the governor's table with an understanding that there will be additional and supplemental technical agreements that we as ODOT will be working on directly with the city, the metro, and the county, and those will follow. And that's those technical agreements that will follow is really where we'll get into the details around regulatory reviews, permitting, and technical staff support, and the roles and responsibilities of each agency as we move forward in the detail of the work. I also just want to acknowledge that as these agreements are in place, that we continue to remain committed to elevating the recommendations that we heard from you as a board. Specifically, as we look kind of back to the September Oregon Transportation Commission meeting, the letter that the HAB put together was provided to the Oregon Transportation Commission. And I just want you to know that that feedback really has been formalized in the record, and it is our job to continue to track how that's incorporated and actualized into our work. I know this question came up last time, so I just wanted to make sure to provide a little bit more specifics, but many of the board's priorities that were reflected in the letter to the Oregon Transportation Commission really were part of the commission's direction to ODOT and the project team. So specifically the board's priorities, that relate to delivering tangible results and benefits to the historic Albina community, creating a financing plan, maximizing economic opportunities, specifically for Black and Brown owned firms and community members with deep ties to historic Albina, as well as the board's priorities around maximizing access and ease of travel and safety and comfortability for people traveling to, from, and within the project area. These priorities are really embedded within the work that was directed by the commission, and these will be our areas of focus as we work together to move forward. We obviously have a lot more work to do as we move forward, and I'll note that there's a couple of priorities that were identified by the board that we need to reflect on more and follow up, and that's how can the project design reflect the history of Albina, including artwork and educational elements. I know that that'll be kind of part of the conversation as we're getting into the urban design update later in your meeting today. We've also heard from the board priorities around how the project's workforce program might be able to provide economic opportunities to support the houseless community. That's an additional conversation that we're going to need to have. As well as how we develop easier ways to access the Rose Quarter Transit Station. So flagging those for items that we have continue work on. We also know that the board articulated a number of priorities that were related to what goes on top of the highway covers, what's developed on or what's next to the highway covers, as well as a governance commission that would be created to have that decision-making authority on those program use on top. So I know I've said it before, but just want to reiterate that this is a critical process, but it is one that will be led outside of the project, looking to an agency that has land use authority to lead that effort, in this case, the city of Portland. So our work together with you as part of the project will really be about creating the space. So that design of the highway cover and the community connections. And then what ultimately goes on top of that space in the highway covers is not something that we as ODOT have authority over. So that'll be led by a local government agency with that land use and development expertise. So just want to note that that is still to come as well and will be a separate effort. And beyond the governor's agreement that is in progress, we do have some additional work together as we focus on the highway cover structures. Again, that space that is being created on top and around I-5. And so again, the decisions around land use, programming, and governance of what gets developed will be led by the city. So these conversations are forthcoming. They haven't started yet, but we're looking forward to coming back to you with more information about those. And again, I'll just remain committed that as ODOT is part of those future discussions, we'll continue to carry forward the priorities that we've heard from the Historic Albina Advisory Board. I'll transition now to talking about the project's finance plan. So you'll remember from our last meeting that one of the directions from the Oregon Transportation Commission was to have ODOT develop a finance plan by December 1st. So we are very much focused on that right now. We're in the process of developing an initial finance plan for the project. So this will really be, it's a high level conceptual finance plan. It's providing kind of an early and high level overview of the initial estimated funding and financing needs and the potential sources. So we're working to update the preliminary cost estimate of Hybrid 3 based on additional study and design that we've been doing with the team over the past month. And this will really serve as a starting point for ongoing cost estimates as there's more details about the design moving forward. We're also describing the range of possible funding options that might be available, really at the federal, state, and local levels. And really, the project's funding and finance plan is something we'll continue to bring forward to you as the board, provide regular information briefings on, and it will continue to evolve as the project design progresses. All right, then lastly, I just wanted to quickly update you on a new program within ODOT. We've heard your feedback on this, as well as other advisory bodies' requests for compensation for volunteering your time and helping us advance ODOT projects. So I'm excited to share some news on that. And it's about ODOT's new equitable engagement compensation policy. So it's now possible for us as ODOT, as an agency, to compensate advisory committee members for attending committee meetings and really providing the value, the expertise that is needed for us to be able to move these projects forward. So I definitely have more questions than answers on this, but wanted to bring you along in the conversation based on what we know. So we'll be able to implement this policy retroactively back to July 1 of this year. And I also just want to give a shout out to our ODOT Office of Social Equity for putting this policy in place. So we're hitting the ground running to implement this new compensation policy. What we know thus far is that HAB members, you will have the option to be paid for your time attending our HAB meetings. You do have to be present for at least 2/3 of the meeting to receive that payment. And the payment is also taxable income. And so there are requirements around how that's claimed on your taxes. And to initiate this program, there's some paperwork that we do have to fill out. Please bear with us. And so Erica will be helping to follow up on that. We'll do some individual emails out to provide more information. I'll just note that the dollar amount of the payment is still being determined. Know that we are advocating to have the highest level of payment possible under the policy for the HAB. And we're also coordinating with other projects in the Urban Mobility Office just to ensure consistency for how the program is applied. So Again, we expect more information to come. We'll have this new program up and running before the end of the year. Obviously, there's more information to be sharing with you, but just wanted to bring you along with what we knew today. And then I guess that wasn't my final one. I do have one more. Just to note that I do not have an update from our Community Oversight Advisory Committee because they have not had a meeting since the last update that you received from Janelle Bell. I will note that the COAC meeting that was scheduled for this Thursday has been canceled, really because there's a Meet the Prime events for the I-205 improvement project that same night. And so we wanted to make sure that members of our DBE workforce contracting community had a chance to attend that. So we'll make sure that you as the HAB also get a link to the flyer for that event, which is this Thursday. So with that, Erica, I will turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Megan. I appreciate that. Appreciate you for giving us that update. So to the HAB at our last meeting, you were asking how the project team was responding. Megan spoke a little bit to that, how we're keeping track of your concerns, of recommendations that you are making. And I want to let you know that the team has been tracking your input in a couple of ways. First, as you know, you receive the meeting minutes, the notes from our conversations, and at the end of those notes are meeting summaries, discussion, feedback. There's a matrix there that we've been using to record input from discussion groups, and we're using the meeting summaries to help us organize all of that, and then using the matrix towards the end of those meeting notes to specifically identify areas and where we are with addressing that issue. So if it's still in progress, or it's been resolved, or is it something that we still need to get information to you on, you'll be able to notice that in the matrix. We've also, our team has developed a separate tracking tool that's going to provide a better, maybe hopefully more user-friendly tool for you going forward. It's going to summarize all the feedback provided by the board to date, and then a list of the most recent feedback so that you all are up to date, so that you know that you're being heard, so that you know that we are encouraging the project team to be responsive to those things that are important to this body and to the community. Let's see. We know that you are concerned about mentorship opportunities for DBE firms, and we'll be continuing to partner with Janelle Bell and Amber Ontiveros and the COAC in regards to giving you updates how that program continues to develop. We know that you were concerned about supporting workforce and development in the trades, career paths and educational advocacy opportunities. So all of those things, we want you to know that we're listening and that it is my goal to make sure we are holding the project accountable to not only listening, but to following up, providing solutions. It will be your charge to help us come up with some of those good outcomes are, and we'll talk more about that as we dive a little bit further. Another thing that we heard from you in our last conversation with the urban design team was Mr. Washington brought up kind of the jump town designs. And I want you to know that our team has their feelers out there. I do in the community, and we have some leads in regards to being able to leverage that work that was already done in the community for things that the community wanted to see. And so we want to get that to the design team so that they can utilize that, leverage that as we talk about the things going forward in regards to the undercrossing design and other elements that you all can have input on. And as Megan mentioned earlier, we want to make sure that we're considering impacts to houseless people in our design treatments, that we are inclusive and collaborative in all the work that we're doing going forward. So please always feel free, as you do, to communicate with me in our one-on-ones, emails. I am committed to making sure that I'm communicating those things in my consistent conversation with the design team and helping to hold the project team accountable to responsiveness and to positive outcomes as reflected by the committee. So at this time, next slide, please. I just want to know if you all have any questions in regards to what you've heard so far before we dive in further. If there are HAB members in the meeting, in the virtual space who have comments or questions about what you've heard, this will be the time to jump in before we move forward. Mr. Edwards, I see your hand.
Thank you very much, Erica. There was a good feedback that we got from Megan. Thank you very much for sharing kind of where we're at thus far. I've got several questions and concerns. One is that we'll have a new governor in 23. And so where is that going to put us in regards to our concerns and issues regarding this project, because it will not be completed. Also, I'm concerned about, and we've had this conversation before, about ODOT being an advocate. And when we say advocate, I think we're talking about ODOT owning that advocacy for this group. Not just their projects are done, they're going down the road, they're doing something else. We expect ODOT to be advocating and own that advocacy as if this is their, as if the project is not complete until the community is satisfied with what is going on after the project. They need to recognize that they're staking their reputation on that advocacy. Because if they don't advocate in the manner that that they own this and that they have something at stake in this as well, then their reputation will be mud in the community. Let's just be clear about that. I was concerned about that last slide that talked about college career path, and this is something that that has concerned me over the years. All these college educated folks have to realize that only 28% of the people in America that enter high school graduate from college in 10 years. It's a fact in Oregon, it's a fact in Washington, it's a fact nationwide. That's an abysmal record for as much as they preach about telling our kids to go to college. And so I would certainly want at least as much emphasis on other career paths that perhaps require a college aptitude, so that every child coming out of high school is prepared for college, but at the same time, know that there's other aptitudes that they can go into that are just as lucrative and perhaps more lucrative over the early part of their career that require that college aptitude. Because I think we all know the facts about you know, you go to college and you come out with this huge debt. Again, only 28% of the children that enter high school in this country and in the state, only 28% of those graduate from college in 10 years. What about the other 72%? What happens to them? We've been telling them to go to college, just like we told the 28%. And so what happens to them when they think that if they don't go to college, they're not going to be successful? So there has to be more emphasis on careers that require a college aptitude but don't require a college education. And that I get concerned about that, because we're the ones that bear the brunt of that conversation, and it manifests itself in young people that don't value education early on. I don't play sports. Nobody in my family's gone to college. So why am I going to school? That's a subtle message that goes out. And we need to be clear about that, because it happens to too many of our young people. Like I say, if they don't play sports, you know, then nobody, like I say, in the family's gone to college. Typically it ain't going to happen for them, and it's a pipe dream. And that's how they look at it. So I want more emphasis on other career paths that don't require a college education, but require a college aptitude. And I just want to reiterate that. And I think that's what our community needs, because the facts speak for themselves. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Edwards. I don't want to quote him incorrectly, but I know that I have heard the CMGC often talk about career paths and investment in the trades. A number of young men who are speaking so highly of and the hope for this project and being able to start as apprentice and move towards journey level on this project. And so I would say we're in agreement, and we will definitely be working side by side with the COAC and with the CMGC to make sure that we're addressing that concern. Appreciate your comment. Other HAB members who have questions or thoughts before we move forward?
Erica, this is Megan really quickly. I just want to acknowledge, yes, absolutely, Mr. Edwards, and to your comment specifically around ODOT's role for advocating for the HAB. Yes, I'm in 100% agreement with you there in that we cannot do this work if we are in partnership together. And that partnership means that we as an agency are advocating for the HAB's recommendations and priorities along the way, but also in how the tentacles of the project also relate to the other components and efforts that are happening in the community too. So as we're part of those conversations, we'll be sure to be carrying that forward. And please continue to hold us accountable as we move forward in those as well.
Thank you, Megan. Appreciate that. We'll see no other
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Edwards. Don't want to cut anyone short. Was there any other HAB members who had a comment before we move forward in the agenda? Seeing none, I would like to introduce to you all again James McGrath, who is going to be walking us through some exciting, innovative, collaborative work. He has some folks with him that are going to be helping us. So I'll let him introduce, but James, we'll hand it over to you.
Wonderful. I, once again, I'm very thankful to be here, and hopefully we can return to the slides. I'm also excited to broaden the circle and have others, my esteemed colleagues and favored collaborators will also speak to you tonight about some of the key topics that we'll be tackling together. So, but before we get to the main event for urban design, I did want to, next slide. The last time we spoke, we kind of breezed through some early stuff because there was business at hand. We had to dive into a very specific topic, but I think it is worth revisiting some of these things. Last time we met, we talked about how we were taking 6 things and boiling them down into 4 because of the adoption of Hybrid 3. And so we're just taking this as an opportunity to update some of the graphics and the graphic language that we'll be using with you to talk about the project. Next slide. So we're going from those outdated images to things that are a little bit more contemporaneous. And they are the same 4 topics. What's happening on the covers and what is the work to do to support the work and the uses on the covers? What's happening with those local streets that are also share the surface of the covers? What's happening alongside the highway project, which is a key feature for tonight. And last time we talked about this, but we'll revisit it tonight. What's happening underneath at some key locations. Next slide. So Megan mentioned the highway covers and the use, the process by which design decisions are made about uses on the covers will be handled through a separate process, but our work as the project's urban design team and engineering team is to support that other process and to make sure that it is built on a technical foundation, but also the good work that happened before. So over the course of the summer and for the majority of the recent HAB meetings, the good work of the independent covers assessment team has been taking center stage. You've been involved in that, and I just want to assure you that we're building on that. They have beautiful depictions, beautiful analysis, really meaningful input and engagement. Next slide. And we're building on that. We are mindful of that foundation. We intend to utilize it. We don't want to go back around the barn or revisit or waste your time asking things that have been asked before. So we're in a very complementary and building on that. Next slide. At the core of what we need to do based on that previous work is adopt hybrid 3, and that has ramifications for local streets, has ramifications for the uses on the covers, and frankly, it has ramifications for all of the work that we will do together. So my point here is simple. The urban design team for the project is in a very complementary and supportive way or role for all of the things that will emerge and unfold on the covers. Now, the next topic, next slide, is something that is going to take center stage over the course of the next few meetings. It's a really complicated topic around local streets. Here is a depiction in process of how the local streets design is changing with the adoption of hybrid 3. Next slide. We together are going to unpack each street by street. And for the slide clicker, you can move swiftly through these. There is a major northbound couplet, Williams, next slide, and Vancouver, each of which have a role. And that role has to do with transit. It has to do with active transportation of pedestrians and vehicles. Next slide. That is the primary north-south couplet, but because of hybrid 3, Flint also remains a part of the project, and we have an opportunity to explore what is the role of Flint, what does it look and feel like, and how do we allocate the space on the surface of Flint to be most supportive of the outcomes you seek. There is also, next slide, a really short segment of Victoria that is also part of the project, maybe has a little bit less opportunity for transformative effect, but it can do things that complement the potential development adjacent to it. So there's 4 things that we'll talk about north-south. Next is Broadway. Broadway has a tremendous opportunity and burden in terms of all of the kinds of work that Broadway needs to do, and yet it traverses the signature part of our project. We'll talk about that and unpack it. Next slide, Weidler. Similarly, an important east-west couplet. Lots of things to discuss on Weidler and how we allocate space. Where does transit go? Where do people board and alight? Buses and streetcar. Next slide. There's also Hancock, which remains part of the project, albeit in a simpler geometric fashion here. It is the connection and has the potential to make the connection from upper to lower Albina very explicitly, and all of the development potential that exists in lower Albina. So we will talk about its role as well. And then finally, when you put it all together, next slide, the things that we're going to be talking about are things related to pedestrian facilities, their facilities and their character. What are the materials that make up the sidewalk, and what is the width of the sidewalk? Where are the crossings? How does lighting work into the thing? Where is the signage, the furnishing, the street trees, and the placement of all those objects to make a better space for people? Next slide. Generally, we're going to be focused on the space between the face of the building or the future building and that first lane or the curb use, parking, TNC pickup and drop off, bus facilities. We're focused on the edges where the people are. So we will be looking at bicycle facilities, and we will be looking at development supportive frontages. Next slide. So how are the streets helping to reinforce the outcomes we want on the covers and those properties that are off the covers? So things like bicycle corrals or loading zones or on-street parking, accessible parking, things like that. What are the uses directly adjacent to the curb that will support the development outcomes that we seek? So there's a whole series of issues and topics that we're going to talk about related to streets. Next slide. And I want you to be thinking about that. The other thing that we have to address, and that we'll get to address in a way that really no other working group has done so yet, part of Hybrid 3 is the green loop, which is this idea about pedestrian-friendly, walkable city experience around the entire central city, which traverses a part of our project area. Part of this Hybrid 3 is relocating that idea up onto Broadway and Weidler. And no one has really unpacked what does that mean. And so we get to do that together. What is the expression of the green loop as it traverses the Rose Quarter project area will, I think, be really interesting. So next slide. That's all the stuff that is yet to come. I wanted to spend a moment before I hand it over to my colleagues to talk about the edges and the sides. I wanted to spend a moment making sure that we heard you correctly. Last time when we explored and introduced this idea of how can we make undercrossings. So this is a slide from our last presentation. Next slide. we asked you the question about, are you interested in this? And we heard a resounding response that yes, you're absolutely interested in making these ideas or these places superb and safe. You want to explore all of these places equally. There was no interest in prioritizing or favoring one over the other, at least at that moment. And you're really interested in making them better than what is commonly understood and available, really looking into best-in-class solutions, really great ideas from here and abroad. So those are some high-level things that we took away. I want to go into individual examples. So next slide. At Russell, which is the first one, we heard an interest in absolutely, let's make this what I call the hallway. Let's make this pass-through experience better. Because there is excitement and activity in the lower parts of Russell, but there's also the new development at the Hilltop site. There's all of the destinations and activity up on MLK. And how can this project tie some of those things together? So that was one idea. The other was an idea around spreading our wings a little bit and exploring possibly developing an active play or some sort of active community space a little bit to the north of Russell in the part of the project area that is further underneath those highways. And so we are embarked on exploring both of those things. I'll just share next slide and you can move through these two quickly. We are still getting excited about it. We are generating ideas. We'll talk at the end of my presentation about some of those ideas and how we get more from you. But those are the two things that we took away on Russell and that we're running with. On the next one, down on Multnomah Street, it seemed like a simpler palette of things, but this is, as Erica alluded, this is where Jumptown was brought up, and we are doing our research. We are trying to find out what are the culturally appropriate and good things from the Jumptown proposal that we can build on in our expression at Multnomah. And this was really about making sure that that hallway and pass-through experience was enriched and enlivened for all users. The next slide and the next location, well, here's some more examples of how we're getting excited about that. And these come from our travels and others. There are simple and really elegant ways to bring some life and some light to these underpasses. Next location was the Rose Quarter Transit Center. And this is where we heard two primary things. One was, let's make the experience for those who are waiting and using transit. There's a lot of people already here. Let's enrich that experience. Let's make it nicer. Let's make it feel brighter and safer. And also, let's introduce commerce, the idea that maybe there's a little bit of commercial activity that could be part of it. So here's, again, some examples of delight, surprise and delight in infrastructure projects, but also interjecting a little bit of commerce. So we are exploring those ideas as well. And then there was one more location at Lloyd Boulevard, and even this as a location, you were interested in exploring all the possibilities. And again, this might not be a signature part of the project, but we should leave no stone unturned. The next slide is, again, maybe it's something more playful. Maybe it's an interactive part of as people move through this space. Or the next slide, maybe it's something that's really around surprise and delight. I will say that we talked to you last week about 4. And I messed up because there's one more, but wait, there's more. So Northeast Oregon is actually another part of the project between the Rose Quarter Transit Center and Lloyd. And we intend to explore that with the same level of detail and earnestness that we're exploring the others, because you said, let's explore them all equally. And so we got the quantity wrong, but this is another place where we can share some design ideas as well. So that's my framing of what we heard. Next slide. And I guess the question is, before we go to the main topic at hand, did we hear you correctly? Did we get that right?
So let me jump in and I will.
Hi, this is Ebony. You definitely heard it right. And I thank you so much, James, for your presentation.
You are most welcome.
Wonderful. Any other comments from HAB members? Any comments or questions for James? Okay, wonderfully done. James, I'll give it back to you and we'll keep going.
Thank you. If you can put up the slide deck, I think before I hand it off, we do have another, one more slide for me. So after Oregon Street, there should be a slide about working more together. I'm excited to work with you. I know the team that you'll meet soon is excited to work with you, and we're looking for other ways to do so. Megan and others talked about the compensation. I think what we're on the hunt for is more time to work with you. And we're proposing a sketch of that would be a design collaboration forum that think of it as like open office hours with the design team, where you can come and visit and work with us and explore ideas, bring ideas. We get to listen more, we get to collaborate. It's really a working kind of a meeting. We are trying to make these meetings a little bit less about us presenting and trying to get to dialogue quickly, but I think we'd like more of it. So if you are willing, we are starting to explore setting up another forum on maybe the opposite Tuesdays, or all of that is to be determined. But we really do and wish we had another forum in which we could collaborate on these design ideas. And we've heard some interest from HAB members that you want an opportunity to dive deeper, to share an idea. This isn't about homework. This isn't about anything other than having more time to work together. So it's an idea. I think we'd love your thoughts on that idea. I think you've been asked a question in a survey about this, and we intend to take it further if there's interest.
Members' comments. If we could go back to the gallery view, will help me see if there are any hands that go up. Thank you so much. Thoughts from our HAB members? Anyone want to respond to the question, to the query?
Hi, this is Ebony again. I'm working, so I apologize with my camera off, but I thank you, James, for that. In this survey that Erica sent out to all of us, this question was on there about being a participant in the forum. And I appreciate the opportunity to do so. And I do think it's a part of I think it's an ongoing kind of working simultaneously with the HAB, and being part of that forum is definitely something I'm interested in. So thank you for affording us the opportunity to do so.
Thanks, Ebony. Any other comments?
Yeah, I just want to add on to what Ebony said. Appreciate the engagement, transparency. I do think when you went through the PowerPoint, I was thinking of a lot of the examples could be like that, both and, like you can have a play with lighting type things as well, or like a business with more lighting. So it's good. I'm sure y'all have that in mind, but I'm just reiterating it. And yeah, I'll be in touch about more being involved on the design forum. So, and then I do feel on the Flint Bridge, there's a lot of potential for like an emergency preparation route and other type of things that Flint Bridge could be utilized for. So
Great idea.
Appreciate it. We'll know that the extension of the invitation stands. The desire is to be very collaborative as much as is possible, not to try to give people more work. We know that everyone has plenty on their plates, but this is an opportunity to really have your hands in all of the process. That's really exciting. So we'll keep it in the air. James, back to you.
Excellent. Okay, back to the slides. One more topic to address. It's really the main event for tonight, and it's like last time. We want to introduce an opportunity for design advice to you, and we want your feedback. But in order to do that, I'm going to hand it over to two of my colleagues, and we agreed that they would introduce themselves because I would wax too poetic about my affection and respect for them. So tonight you're going to meet and hear from Bill Hart and Marianne Zarkin, who are going to talk to you about highway edges, walls, landscapes, as part of the expression of the project and an opportunity for your input. So with that, I will turn it over to Bill.
Thank you, James. Really excited to be here as part of the urban design team. We've got a great group that's very creative in looking at options. I think what we want to do is really explore with you and have you become our kind of design partners, because we don't know everything. Next slide. As James said earlier, we're looking at the perimeter and the edges of the project. And in this particular case, next slide, we're looking at the sides. This is generally a long, thin project. As James had mentioned, we've got over a mile worth of walls on this project, about 6,000 square feet. Next slide. And with this, you see that the sides, as you can see here in red, they're on both sides of the project, and instead, very far north and very far south. Next slide, please. But those sides come in two kind of edge conditions. Next slide, please. There's the hard surfaces, which is the walls, the deck, the edges, the piers, all the things that basically support the project along the perimeter, as well as eventually the decks and walls that'll support the covers. Next slide. And then we have the soft surfaces, the landscape edges, the buffers, the opportunities to bring a landscape into the project to make it much more comfortable and attractive to people that are moving through it. Next slide, please. And Marianne will talk a little bit more about that. Here, for example, I'm just taking a look at the hard surfaces. And again, this is an example just showing some of the walls on the project. Up on top, off to the right, you'll see a wall that is kind of a sound wall that basically you might be able to see from both sides. It protects both the community from the project, and so it's a separation between the community and the project that is visible from both sides. Down below, you'll have what's called a retaining wall. This is something that basically holds back earth, and it's a wall that basically is be seen by the motorists as they go by, transport through this area. Next slide, please. These walls can come in, a variety of different uses. Here's an example of just decoration on one side of the wall, something along the perimeter. And then here's a situation where you've got a wall surface that could have something, murals, particularly seen on maybe both sides of the wall. Next slide. And again, further on down on the project, closer to the Moda Center, you'll see a situation here where we've got a wall on the right, which again is something we will be taking a look at. What kind of expressions, how do we bring in possibly some representation, some heritage of the African-American, the albino history into something like this, which will be seen by thousands and thousands of people. Next slides, please. But those walls also can merge with the landscape. And this is a perfect example, which I'd like to show you. And at this same time, give an opportunity to talk to Marianne Zarkin, our landscape architect.
Thanks, Bill. I'm Marianne Zarkin, landscape architect with MZLA. We're a woman-owned firm, and we're one of several DBE firms working on this project. And just as the same as James and Bill, I'm incredibly delighted to be part of the process. So as Bill said, the wall surfaces are going to be experienced by both people moving through the project on I-5, but also the people in the neighborhoods around the freeway. So we're going to have opportunities to augment or dress up those wall surfaces in all different sorts of sculptural ways, but also in terms of landscaping. And this is an example of using vines and other plant materials to enrich that environment. And I wanted to say something kind of based on what Andrew had brought up earlier. These are just examples. They're kind of a starting point. And these are kind of like things that have been done around the world, but we might combine them with 5 different things, or we might decide we don't like any of them. So they're just examples. These are some places where around town, even where we see vines growing on walls, we see plant material planted in these areas. So next slide, please. We have a couple sections here to kind of give you some examples of what we're talking about. These are based on very conceptual design ideas, working with the engineering team in terms of what these walls might look like in section. So on the right-hand side, you'll see the wall there, as Bill explained, is retaining wall that brings the elevation up from the I-5 elevation all the way up to Commercial Avenue in this example. And you can see on the left-hand side, a 10-foot high sound wall. We have in between there the opportunity to add up to maybe 3 rows of conifers and deciduous trees and shrubs to kind of create a landscape buffer edge. And then we have the opportunity to decorate this 10-foot wide sound wall with both a frieze or with landscape material so that we can really kind of tie it into the neighborhood. So, I mean, this landscape can really knit together the neighborhood with the roadway in a pleasant way. So next slide, please. This is another just conceptual idea of how the sound wall and the roadway is going to work with side streets in our city right now and in the neighborhoods. We might have a sidewalk. You'll see that on the right, there is a sound wall. And in some places we have room between the sidewalk and that sound wall to have a slope that could have several rows of conifers or deciduous trees, and then have shrubs and of other types of plant material that we could add there. But then also for drivers on the freeway, we have places where we have room to put plant material on that side. So as you're moving through I-5, through the freeway, you can have an experience some of the greenery that is, we all know, to be the Northwest. I mean, some opportunities exist of drought tolerant plant materials. It could be roses, like natives, or ornamental plant materials, or roses that might tie in with the Rose City. This is just kind of an example. So once again, I think that the landscape can knit together all these elements, the sides and the walls and the neighborhood context and to create a better environment. So next slide, please. So one of the things that we can think about is as we move under the cover or enter into an undercrossing area, we are kind of created, we have walls, but we also have kind of a ceiling, wherein, as you can see where it says HAB and community ideas here, we can create a portal and we can create a sense of entry so that people coming into the city or into a neighborhood can get, we can communicate to them what we want to in terms of our community. So next slide, please. So this is an example from Seattle. This is coming in from the east side, Mercer Island on the Interstate 90 there. And this is actually based on a historic portal that was put in the original I-90, probably in the 60s. See a Seattle portal to the Pacific. And with it, they used a lot of Native American imagery on the side. And this just really creates this sense of entry into this whole city of Seattle from the east side. And this is something we could think about in this context as well. Next slide, please. This is another example of a portal or entry. Once again, this could be the cover, or it could be like as we go under Russell, where we have created a landscape edge. And this gives you this feeling of you're going into a forest, which could be kind of cool. I mean, we're in the Northwest, it's a verdant landscape. And I think this kind of reinforces it and kind of creates an exciting and interesting image or vision. So next slide, please. I believe it goes back to Bill.
Thanks, Mary Ann. And as we said earlier, there'll be lots of surfaces on this project. Here's an example of, we know this area eventually is going to be covered, the area in red. And so, you know, as we look at all different opportunities, we will be looking at the underside, as Jim announced earlier, as well as the sides. Next slide, please. What we're showing you here are some things just to kind of get you stimulated and think about some of the things we are thinking about. We are not necessarily advocating for this particular design, but just trying to show you that there's opportunities on the walls, on the buttresses, underneath the structures to have some sort of creative expression, some sort of cultural expression. These could all occur on all the edges that are going to occur throughout this project. And that's one of the things that we would like for you to be our partner in exploring some of these ideas and giving us some social context about what you feel and what you think would be most desired to make this all happen, because we're not going to do this by ourselves, and we don't plan on doing this by ourselves. Looking for your cooperation and your understanding and your support and creativity to kind of work with us to kind of come up with some solutions that we think will make this a better place. And
Thank you, guys.
James?
So the question goes back, and we can go back to that gridded view because the question is simple. Are you, much like last month, are you interested in this? What are your initial ideas, and where shall we go together?
Well, tonight, a little, my word would be not the normal flow of the HAB. The HAB is usually a very talkative group. So, been very quiet tonight, which.
Well, here, I got something
Doctor,
to say,
oh,
then.
go ahead, John.
Yeah, hi. Well, who was that? Leslie? If you were going to
Yeah,
say something, go ahead. Go for it, Leslie. I'll say it after you.
okay, I have a question. You know, I love all the ideas about activating with art and with plants, et cetera. And I guess my question is that considered part of the highway project, or does that funding have to come from someplace else to pay for those things?
Great question.
I can step in on that one. So those elements are part of the project. But Leslie, you are asking the question around funding eligibility. So that is exactly what we're working on as part of the finance plan, is to be really clear on here is the scope of the project and here are the things we are going to do. And then here is how we are paying for it. And here are the sources of funds that can be used to pay for it. So I don't have a direct yes or no answer for you, but you're asking the right question at the right time as we're working on the finance plan.
So the expectation is that that will be included as part of the overall project.
Indeed.
As opposed to what's going to go on top of the covers.
Yep, exactly. Okay. Yeah. So the buildings on top of the highway covers, separate and distinct from the project, but the treatments on the edges, the sides, the undercrossings, very much part of the project.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie.
Yeah.
Hey, yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm just having problems with my computer, which is a first for me, but I'm glad I got a chance to get in on this conversation because, you know, I was just listening to the last lady speak about the forestry and all that kind of stuff. And I wind up watching myself slip into this behavior again, is looking at who's telling me these things and what it sounds like. And I say that again for the fact that I want to continue to enroll the HAB in participating with this kind of stuff, because I think this is a real crucial intersection where I think our community neglect to really pay attention to. And that is the beacons, those things that attract people to the communities in the light of, and the ways in which they get attracted. You know, it's amazing how building and projects are beacons for communities. It actually draws the type of people or not draw the type of people to a community in which you want. The buildings in them do that. The very nature of the structural aspects do that. So I'm really kind of fascinated by how these things work. And the fact of the matter is that we collectively need to get together and make sure that there's patterns on the walls that we respect, the types of things that we are encouraged by. Because most of the time I hear people come in and present ideas that they have on these projects. And generally their ideas are what usually is the ending project. It looks like those ideas that were presented. So I would like to encourage us as the HAB and community to really stay involved in what goes on those walls. What's the image that we want to have when people show up and hit that bridge and hit the Northeast? What do we want them to see? What's the message we want to send them? Not somebody else's idea, but what is our idea to do that? So that I just wanted to throw out an encouragement to that, Bill. So I appreciate the invitation, and I'm a recipient of that invitation. I'd be wide open to participate with this.
Sounds excellent. Thanks, John.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Bryson's hand. Bryson.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd build a little bit off of what John just said. I mean, I think the beacon thing hits the nail on the head in that not only is this going to be a beacon for the broader community, but it's also going to be a beacon for what we build in the neighborhood that's part of the neighborhood that's going to be created by the project. And, you know, if we think about the development pieces as a wealth creation component, having effectively the entire roadway coming through the piece be an advertisement for the development on top, you know, that could help generate more on that wealth creation component of the project.
Thanks, Bryson. Appreciate that. Any other comments from the Historic Albina Advisory Board? James?
I have one more question, if you'll allow it.
No.
I think it's,
Of course.
So one of the things that I think we want this other meeting and this other forum for, but I want to precipitate the conversation here too, is what is the animating idea? You're talking about the beacon and the beacon for wealth creation, and we want this place to be welcoming to us. Is there, I mean, we've been watching and are going to embark on doing the Soul Walk. We're watching other creative things happening in the community. Is there an animating idea that you all think of when you think of what is the animating idea of the aesthetic of this project? I'm not trying to sound abstract. Is it history and culture of Albina? Is it music? Is it the natural landscape? Like, I think you don't have to have an answer, but we are looking for something. Maybe there's a thread that ties through many of these things, including how we make columns, how we make walls, how we make edges. I'd love for you all to have thoughts and discussion around that, because I don't want to come to you with an idea or something that we think is right. I really do. We all want to hear from you.
Yeah.
Is that a question or is that a statement?
That is a question. What would be
Okay.
the animating idea?
Well, you know, the animating idea, I don't think it's an animation. I mean, I think the very nature of being in media myself is that I've heard for years people state that if I didn't publish the magazine Flossing that I do in this state, they would never imagine that Black people even live here. The fact of the matter is that we need to see ourselves in the very structural aspects and mechanics of the economic forces and construct that we are a part of. And so the very nature of us being able to see ourselves, even if it's just a matter of throwing a ball. You know, I heard old boy talk about, you know, the kids going to college. I'm sorry, I'm just one of those guys that went to college on a scholarship for playing ball. But it didn't say that I wasn't academically sound. I just happened to be athletically sound and also academically sound. But the whole reality is that we need to be able to have opportunities for people to see themselves and for them to see our culture, for them to be a part of the lively aspects of who we are, the greatness that we see. Since we can't teach about it in education, we should be able to show people it in imagery on the walls. You travel all around the country, you see that same thing. You go to New Mexico, I was really impressed driving out on the highways in New Mexico, looking at some of the things that they put on their cement columns and those types of things. So, you know, it's not hard to talk a little bit about or show people a little bit about the culture that comes in, even by using the colors that we use. You know, it's a clear delineation between what white America looks like and what Black America looks like in terms of how we structure things and how we build things and what it looks like in terms of imagery. So I hope I was able to sort of tap into the question that you asked, but yeah, there are some things.
I appreciate that. We've got a hand from Mr. Campbell, and I saw what you put in the chat, Andrew. No hand. Okay. I saw what you put in the chat there, and so I'll just read it real quickly. We need a Jamboard session to answer that question. Easier way to get everyone's thoughts virtually and then instantly. And so it sounds like some great opportunity, James, for what you said earlier about kind of the drop-in sessions and how to have this ongoing conversation. It looks like there's some energy for it. Miss Sharon Gary Smith, hi there. I want to make sure we hear your voice and give an opportunity. I know you did not put your hand up, but let me just afford you a moment if there's any comment you would have.
Thank you. I'm sorry for being tardy. I did indicate to Erica Warren that I would be tardy. I must say I found it amusing that no matter what time I arrive, I hear John. And I just realized the last time. So his timing, or else he's doing a lot. And that was kind of exciting that I'm in the right room. So thank you very much. I just wanted to verify based on what John had said and then what James had asked. If I understand, you're not necessarily talking about blasts or whistles. You want us, amongst us, those are the contributors that John is talking about. You want us to identify, to amplify, to determine what is the messaging, whether it is flashes of light, whether it's color, whatever that is, you want us, which is what John sounds like he's saying, just in different ways, that we're going to name the paths that curve in to bring you through and on beyond historic Albina. Whatever happens visually and emotionally and economically will be driven by how we name and then allow the building of that vision to actually become concrete. And I'm not just talking about construction. Is that correct?
That is what I am saying in with regard to the physical aspects of the project. Tonight, we're talking about how do we make great walls that achieve what you want? How do we, and eventually we'll be asking the same about streets, and we've asked about undersides. We want to come to you with the opportunity. We want to hear your thoughts, and then we work at your service. You said this, did we get it right? What do you think about this? We don't like that at all. You misunderstood us. Or yeah, you got it right, and we want more, or we want better. We're not trying to be the originators. We really want that from you.
My last part of that, it might go back to the fact that we are named as Historic Albina Advisory Board. I always remind myself that we are 2022, 24. We're representative of, but we're not the entire community. So whatever we see could also be questioned, challenged, or amplified by other members of the community. And I often feel, and I may be alone in this, that we are laying out very strong concerns that we believe represent the community. Then I realize when I talk in community, there are others have very different thoughts because we're not monolithic. How do we plan to ensure that our voices, because we've accepted the charge on behalf of the community, but that there are many other voices that may detour or differ from us? How do we come to a collective whole that is not just these 24 of us, no matter how intentional we are, and how do we arrive at a decision point that doesn't drag on forever? Because that's been a concern, and is a concern. I try to govern myself that way. Thank you for acknowledging me.
Thank you for the comment. Thank you. James, I don't know if you want to respond, and I'll give Megan an opportunity to respond also.
I will take a shot at saying we want to hear from you. We believe, as do you, in that you are but a fragment of a larger community, but that we'll get a very good indication of powerful and meaningful ideas from you. I think there will be some public engagement on the project as well at a moment when these ideas are more mature. Right now, we'd be waving our hands. Once we get some ideas developed and those ideas are approved by you for broader conversation, I think we need that loop. And you're right, we will hear a multiplicity of opinion about it. And maybe Megan, you want to talk about the decision process. I think we look to you for recommendations. So you too would be listening to the community, is my guess.
Yep, absolutely. And what I'll add to that is, Ms. Gary Smith will also be looking to you on what are those right ways to be reaching out to the community. What are the right spaces, places, approaches for that, so that we're also reaching that broad and diverse spectrum of the community as well.
And while we're on this topic, I'll just jump in here as well. I've shared with the team your colleague and board member, Srinivasa Brown, and her involvement with Camp ELSO. There are some projects that they're working on with young people in the community around the area of social justice. Your Street, Your Voice works with them in other urban design projects. And so we're hoping to be able to, she's excited about the opportunity to be a collaborator and have an opportunity for youth input as well from the community to help augment our discussion together.
Thanks, Erica, for bringing that back to our attention. I see Mr. Edwards' hand up, and then we'll go to Bryson.
Thank you very much, John. Stephen, I was getting ready to pull my hand down because pretty much Erica kind of summed it up. John certainly said it, that we want something that people know whose community they're in, something that draws people to it. And certainly Ms. Gary Smith also shared that, you know, we have to make sure that this gets out to the community. And I think that James answered that as well, that more than 24 folks need to weigh in on this, even though we do speak to other folks in our community so we can get feedback. We still need to make sure that there's everyone in the community has an opportunity to see what's going on and make a decision and provide their input prior to making a final decision. So, thank you.
Thank you, Bryson.
Yeah, I mean, I think the community input beforehand is going to be a big component in order to make sure that we get, you know, as many kind of creative ideas onto the table as possible. But I think generally thinking about, you know, creating the entire area as sort of a continuous space, a continuous portion of the neighborhood, a kind of continuity of design is going to be important in order to have kind of the aesthetic quality to make people want to come, want to stay, want to be there, and then also get the impression that we're trying to give with the project. And so, you know, kind of coming up with that, going out to the community, vetting these sourcing ideas so that we can have that kind of going into building all the aesthetic components of the project so that everything can kind of work together to give the impression that we want it to give is going to be important going through.
Thanks, Bryson. Well, team, we appreciate your presentation. James, did you have any final thoughts?
No, I'm thankful for your input and having the opportunity to work with you. Thank you.
Thank you, and great to see you, Bill and Marianne. Thank you so much for stepping into the space, and the first of many times to come, I'm sure. Excellent. Well, if you go to our next slide, we are going to have a conversation around restorative justice. Several of you, in fact, all of you, have received an email asking you to weigh in on definition, to weigh in on the information, the kinds of things we're going to highlight tonight to help shape the values of this process. Now, I was the facilitator of the Executive Steering Committee when we first established restorative justice as a value. And so what you had in your email and what we're going to cover tonight are the things that were kind of introduced, dialogued about, thought about from the Executive Steering Committee's point of view. And now that that committee has been sunset and this portion of the work is being handed over to you, it's kind of a revisiting. It's an opportunity to make sure that what's being said or what was said makes sense, that there's an agreement with the aims that are identified, that there's an agreement with the outcomes that are identified, or are there aims or outcomes that are missing? And then are there outcomes that should be revised or should be replaced? And so the goal tonight is to have some conversation around what we are going to go through. We can do that one of two ways. We can go through all of it, hear it, and then come back and revisit each piece and unpack it that way, or we can unpack as we go. And so Historic Albina Advisory Board, I'm pulling on your wisdom, your insight, your keen eyes, and your clarity of thought to help us work through this process. So any preference on, do we want to hear it all and then go back through, or do we want to just unpack piece by piece? What say you? I see, let's go through it. John?
I say engage it as we go.
Okay. Others? Are we in agreement? Let's do it. Next slide. Restorative justice, the aim. For the sake of those who cannot see the slides, I will read through it. Advance social and racial equity resulting in positive change. And what do we mean? We mean that this process is committed to elevating the voices of and providing benefit to the historically impacted Albina community. This process is committed to identifying, encouraging, and, where appropriate, facilitating opportunities for agency partnerships to spur pathways for wealth creation. And this process is committed to recognizing the generational wealth and opportunity taken from the historic Albina community, specifically Portland's Black community, due to the construction of public and private developments, including I-5, the Moda Center, Veterans Memorial Coliseum, the Convention Center, Legacy Emmanuel Hospital, and other urban renewal. Comments, thoughts, or shall we keep going? Let's go to the next slide and we'll come back and give you a chance to unpack it. Restorative justice outcome then. Outcome number 1. Aim, advance social and racial equity resulting in positive change. Desired outcomes. To acknowledge the impacts of these developments on the community, to earn community trust and advance short and long-term actions that aim to create community stability, economic wealth, and opportunity in Albina. Also, to increase access to 1, decision makers and decision-making processes for communities that have and still are experiencing systematic racism. 2, family wage jobs, healthcare, and education. 3, affordable housing to own and rent. 4, affordable business space. We couldn't get all of that on that one slide, so we'll keep going. To advance, again, restorative justice outcome 2, to advance social and racial equity resulting in positive change. Desired outcomes, to provide opportunities for wealth generation through agency partnerships, to provide a forward-leaning project where Black-owned businesses can thrive and spur pathways for wealth generation. Then to use development opportunities to foster public and private partnerships, to maximize disadvantaged business enterprise opportunities at every phase of the project to gain jobs, build capacity, and address specific minority contracting needs in Portland. Then to benefit those historically harmed through actions taken. So we've kind of read through them. We can go back, if you back up for me, slide 68. Let's unpack it together.
Yeah.
The aim, comment. Should I call on you?
I have a question. So I've noticed on all of the slides, the positive change is on there. So if positive change, have there been a discussion of like what would be the metrics of positive change? If that makes sense.
It does make sense, and I think that would be our discussion tonight. What would we say? How would we begin to, what would you suggest would be a good metric, good measurement standard to evaluate whether or not the change that's happening is positive? I think that would be part of our conversation.
Okay. And then other question, because that's for everyone to ponder on that. I'm kind of going ahead, but on the second outcome, would the use of the development opportunities be available for Black nonprofits, or is that part of like public or private? Is that part of private nonprofits? I'm not really sure.
Oh, you're talking about public and private partnerships. Yeah. We'll hold on that one. We'll come back to that one. But it's a great question. If you don't mind, we'll parking lot that. We'll go back to slide 68 and kind of work through that, and we'll make sure to get to that. Thanks, Andrew. I can't see anyone else's hand up, but let's talk about the aim. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Is there something missing? Is there something you'd add? Is there something you'd state differently? Who would like to jump in first?
Oh my, this is Ebony. You know, I don't have I often don't speak if I don't have a solution, and I don't have a solution for the aim, but I'm not sure if the aim totally captures, I don't know, it's so catastrophic. You know what I mean? Because the damage, there's collateral damage throughout generations. And I'm not sure if the aim, the words that are used in the aim, I don't know what I'm trying to say. There's 9 words here, and I'm not sure if those 9 words embody the catastrophic impact on a community. But having said that, I don't have any solutions for any other words. I'm in full transparency. I'm just not sure if that embodies it. And so that's just kind of where I am. But because we're working through it and it's kind of be kind of a think tank for me, I'm sure I'll evolve as the conversation grows tonight. So that's just where I am in this moment.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Sharon, I see your hand.
I must say, after having heard just now Dr. Ebony, I was struggling with trying to figure out, knowing that restorative justice, as I understand it, is constructed to talk about healing, reclamation, recognizing, restoring, moving forward, all of those things that have a lot of action. And when I heard Andrew say, what would be the metrics? Positive change leaves me like, that's simple, and I don't mean it's an oversimplification, but there's so many ways that I could say how many would actually, who had homes taken, how much home ownership is actually going to happen. I have real issues with affordable housing being predominantly, almost exclusively apartments for people who are legacy family home holders, if you will. So I want to see some balance. What would be a number, since we're being told now they can't build housing that are homes, single family, or they do multiple, well, that's not wealth generation unless you own the building or have a stake in it. So I guess I'm looking for some what would it be like, not just the redevelopment of Lower Albina? What would be some indicators, not just minority disadvantage in women, which often trumps Black? So I'm looking for some things that actually build back, hand back, there's recompense in it, in a way that it can be measured, particularly when we know the price of living in Lower Albina now is almost over the heads of so many people who were pushed out. I'm missing something there. I do like what you say, what we mean, but I just think that if we're focusing, it says specifically Portland's Black community in that. So I need to see more that is as focused and not more generalized. And that's not at all a knock here, because I like as I read through it, but it leads off, resulting in positive change. And I want to see more distributive change.
I appreciate that. And you're kind of leaning into the outcomes on the next slide. So thank you. I appreciate that. We will make sure to incorporate, notes are being taken, as you know. That's so great. Your comments are captured. John, I saw your hand, and then Keith.
Shirley, get ready, because I'm about to say some other stuff. And you can go out and come back in if you need to, because I'm going to say something here. You know, this conversation, I'm a little bit uncomfortable with it. I'm uncomfortable from both sides of it. For example, I'm not sure if the silence is an indicator that others are uncomfortable in this room talking about restorative justice also. And maybe if that discomfort that I feel is because it's really the injustice that was done, as it was said, that was earlier, that's so enormous. The question is, in my mind, what could these people restore back in me from this project, in my community, or even, you know, if I got to unpack this inside of myself, for me, is the conversation's a real hard one. I believe we're gonna have to get real dirty in this room, but I don't necessarily believe we're gonna be able to go there, you know, because a lot of guards at the door here. But I can say this to you is that what could this project restore in me in terms of what was taken away from me, my father, my grandfather? In that sense, it was, in what I observed in my family, what was taken was dignity, land ownership, money, those types of things that you know, wealth, the opportunity to access the American dream and capitalism. Those were the things that were taken from us in terms of, because when I think about restoring justice, it implies that there was an injustice somewhere. And so if we can establish what that injustice was, we can to some degree look at what the restorative nature of that could be, right? So in line of what could realistically be administered throughout this structure and within some reason. You know, we're dealing with a highway project, a construction project. So in that project, what could they restore in the Black community that was taken away historically from us? And in my book, when as I wade through this constantly, it just looks at the only thing that can be restored here that we cannot restore ourselves is the economic foundation of this of our community and the things that we look at from a relative economic or a capitalist way. This is my opinion. It doesn't have to look out the community. It doesn't have to be, because what I'm seeing it as, they can't give me dignity back. You know, they can't give me my self-respect and all that stuff. I got to get that stuff the way I got to get it, you know, within, you know, my own family, through the development of my kids and their children and all that kind of stuff. So as I think about this restorative justice, I look at what is the economic impact that could be gained out of this that would allow us a competitive reality in an environment that constantly diminishes us from the things that constantly continues to enforce injustice. So it's a real difficult scenario to gauge into, the way into. So when I land someplace, I just look at the fact that as long as these types of opportunities can give me an ability to compete in an open marketplace with others, so that I could have an equal competitive reality at the same targets and objectives that everybody else has, then to me, that's restorative justice. Can I get the economic cash flow and access to the things that everyone else has for me to be competitive in the marketplace? And so that's how I'm thinking, is in the end, where do we land at? Somewhere around in that space.
Thanks, John. Let me ask you about that last statement on this slide. Does that identify ownership? Does that recognize what you just talked about in terms of what was lost? This process is committed to recognizing the generational wealth and opportunity taken from the historic Albina community, specifically Portland's Black community, due to the construction of public and private developments, including I-5, the Moda Center, Veterans Memorial Coliseum, the Convention Center, Legacy Emmanuel Hospital, and other urban renewal. Does that make the statement? Does that take ownership?
I think it does to some degree take ownership of, to some degree, of those systems that took from us what was taken. Okay, but how do we restore those things is still a question and a conversation.
And that will be the next slides that we get into. So thank you, sir. I thank you. Thank you for your comments too. So we're headed that direction. I saw Mr. Edwards' hands up.
Thank you very much, Dr. Holt. I look at the aim, and I know there's a lot of questions about that language, and I thought that perhaps maybe wordsmithing, you add the word tangible. Advanced social and racial equity resulting in tangible and positive change, something that we can see, something we can touch, something that we can feel. Because as John said, there are intangibles that are never going to be covered under restorative justice, no matter what we do. but there are tangibles that can be restored. And that will be the metrics that were talked about earlier. We can establish those so that we have some tool for measurement. And knowing that we have achieved something, that there is positive change, but it can't be some pie in the sky that we can't see, touch, or feel.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate that. So the addition of tangible between the word in and positive. So advanced social and racial equity resulting in tangible positive change. Thank you for that suggestion, sir. Miss Leslie Goodluck, see your hand.
I just want to add, I want to echo some of what John was saying, that, you know, every day in my job, I'm looking at statistics about where Black people are in comparison to everybody else in the city, that every other racial minority group is doing better than us, that on average Black folks make $30,000 less a year than the average white family, that Hispanic and Asian families are, have passed us. And all of, a lot of that is due to what happened in Albina, that families and businesses, that folks had houses and they had businesses that were taken away and not compensated. And so this project, I know, cannot fix all of that, but my main concern is that Black and brown folks make enough money to be able to buy a house if that's what they want to do, if they want to be able to send their kids to college, that they can do that and not have to take out $500,000 in loans in order for their kids to go to college. I just vitally concerned that we continue to fall farther and farther behind in the city of Portland and in Multnomah County, that home ownership is at its lowest rate since 1965.
Sure.
And again, I know that this project cannot fix that, but a great deal of what ODOT and the city of Portland and, the state of Oregon has done has impacted where Black folks are right now. And the least that can happen is to ensure that Black and brown people make money on this project. So if that's what this says, then I support it. But if it does not say Black and brown people gonna make money, then we need to find some different words.
So would you thank you for that articulation. Do we need to add anything specific within beyond what is articulated? It says specifically, again, in that third section, specifically Portland's Black community. And of course, there are the confines that go into what you can do legally and what you cannot do legally. But this aspirational goal can be, or aim can be, very clear around what the intent is and what restorative justice means. So is there anything verbally other than tangible that would be added? Advanced social and racial equity resulting in tangible positive change. Is there any other articulation or languaging that we'd want to change? We'll go to our next slide in just a moment.
Excuse me, but what I heard, Dr. Hope, from the last two folks that spoke, that we need to add economic in there, not just social and racial equity. Economic needs to be added in there as well. That's what I heard.
You did. That is correct. Andrew, is your hand up, or did I miss you? I don't see it on my screen, so please forgive me if I skipped you. Okay, no? Tangible, here's a suggestion. You tell me how this hits with you. Tangible positive impact to the historically harmed community. And you could add resulting in economic growth or economic increase or capacity.
or recovery. I mean, there's a restoring of something. Obviously, it was a depletion somewhere.
Yeah.
Economic recovery. I mean,
so advance social, racial, and economic equity, resulting in tangible, positive change.
rapid, tangible change.
Rapid, tangible change, resulting in rapid, tangible change, and removing positive.
Yeah.
And I would add sustaining. I don't want something here today and gone tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
I got children, I got grandchildren, I got great grandchildren. And I expect when I'm dead and gone, I expect them to be benefiting from what we do today.
Mm-hmm. So you certainly like the idea of rapid.
Rapid is not as important to me as making sure that we have quality and sustainability.
That it continues. Excuse me, I had to reach for my power cord. My instrument.
You know, when I was thinking about rapid, I was thinking about more something that will accelerate more that expanding that gap.
You're talking about immediate.
Yeah, I'm thinking about accelerating. In other words, yeah, not so much immediate, but something that ain't gonna take, constantly unfolding before it gets to the actual closing the span. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But those things that we invest in, things that make that span closure a more rapid and accelerated kind of reality, not so much just this slow, methodical, drawn out reality, but because as it continues, so is those that have continued to grow and continue to widen that span. But if we just stay at a normal pace, you still ain't gonna bridge that gap in the realization of just normality and in terms of process. So we need to incorporate things that are not only just rapid, but that accelerates the closing of the gap, not just average speed.
Mm-hmm. I understand your thoughts. Something that helps to advance the opportunities in a way that is beyond what would be just the creation of like minimum wage or even just living wage, but how do we create or advance wealth creation?
If I may, Dr. Ho.
Yeah.
Historically, we've always been told, just be patient. It's gonna happen. It's gonna be all right. Just be patient. And we've been patient, and it hasn't been all right, and it hasn't progressed at the pace of other ethnicities and other people of color or women. Let's just be clear. And that's why John says it's got to be rapid. It's got to be now. It can't be, because we're always told to wait for tomorrow, and tomorrow never comes.
Sure no.
And that's been the history in this country, and it's certainly been the history in this state. And so we can't have that no more. We're not going to continue to kick the can down the road saying we're trying to appease our generation and damage into the next generation because they have to fight those same battles. We're tired of that. We can't do that no more. I can't have my children and grandchildren fighting the same battles that I'm fighting. That's redundant.
Thank you, sir.
And that's how we feel. We can't continue to do this anymore. This project is going to be the project that we're going to say, you know what, it's going to happen right now and it's going to happen today. We're not going to be tied up with the wheels of government move slow and we've got different administrations and all that. Our issues and concerns still have to be addressed, but I don't care whose administration is there, who's in charge. We are still here and we are still being disparately treated. And that can't happen no more.
Thank you, sir. I'm reminded of Jesse Jackson's statement many years ago, and that was they always told us there was a light at the end of the tunnel. No one told us it was a train.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Dr. Amato asked the question, who is the intended audience? Who is the intended audience? Megan, would you like to respond to that? Who the intended audience?
Sure. Yeah, the intended audience is really the project team, but also our ODOT leadership, our other government leadership that's helping to actuate the change that we are hoping for, with that really community definition at the heart. Like the values are our North Star on as we're making decisions on the project. Are they meeting our values? Our next step is, and as you've alluded to, the importance of performance metrics too, with these being our North Star as well. Then how are we measuring how we're moving forward in this? So that'll be kind of phase 2 of our work here. But Dr. Amato, the intended audience is really the project team as we move the decisions forward in partnership with you as the HAB.
Thank you, Megan, for that. Just really quick, just still pondering, like I said, this will be like a transformation as I'm on this call. This project, and everybody is coming from a different position, different framework. This project is only one of many. And when we talk about restorative justice, it's important that we don't allow this one just to be the carrot for Black people living in this area, because like I said before, the damage has been catastrophic. When you take homes from families, that prevents us from establishing generational wealth. There's an article in, oh gosh, I want to say Wall Street Journal about 5 years ago that African Americans were 228 years behind economically, but we're number 1 or maybe number 2 in economic buying power. And so we just don't have roots. And so, yeah, even if let's say every Black and brown DBE firm works on this project, we're still 227 years behind. This does not, this is like putting a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound. Although we're thankful, the restoration will really truly come behind the projects in the pipeline. So we start here, and then where do we go from this project and the next project? And I'm sure ODOT has a lot of things in a queue, in unveiling what those are, being transparent to what those opportunities are, so that we can establish those home ownerships, that our kids can establish their homes and grandkids and moving forward. So just want to put that out there, because we can wordsmith, and this could be a North Star, and I appreciate that need to have that framework. But in reality, we just need to have verbs in our sentences, or verbs in some of the sentences, and we just move forward, because we can put things on paper, but it's just going to be the action behind that is going to be transformational.
Thank you. Ms. Sharon, I see your hand up.
This is so powerful, even the exercise of being able to exercise our thinking. And I'm gonna have to thank Brother John for suggesting it might be dog do or something. That kind of threw me. But the fact that he caused us all probably to crank it up a bit, I'm going to appreciate that. I guess that's always catchy for me is the idea to talk about facilitating opportunities to spur pathways for wealth generation, when I remember that my family is one of those. I'm a legacy child. I say that I like tattoos to look at, and I'm glad they're on others. I would never have one until I realized I was going to have 1835 North Benton tattooed on my arm, because that was my family's home. And so when I hear the idea of, and then they bought a home, and Emmanuel Legacy had Portland Development Commission take that. And then my father bought another home out in Southeast, because he said they won't come out here around Eastmoreland to come and get us. And I mean, he was intentional about dirt. But what I think about is the idea that Black people who were acquiring generational Passover, that they had land. I keep hearing about, and I don't think it's in jest, because many more than us know the real history of what was taken from us. And so when I hear this thing about wealth generation. We had wealth, and it would have been generationally passed on. We would have had more acquisition. There's an intentionality about what has happened to us. And so I find myself leaning, it's kind of scary, closer and closer to John.
Thank you.
Because I'm really, and that is a scary thought on many levels. He knows
But that's okay. We'll talk about that in private. No, I'm just kidding.
I still we can talk. There's something about what was taken and the inability to honestly talk about what is required at a minimum to be restored. And I so appreciate Dr. Amato just saying there are all these other projects. I don't want to be caught in the tunnel of just looking at this one when all the other cards are not on the table or are not being offered, so that we will go with this, which is historic, and not be part of a larger, serious come to us with intention. And it's starting to stir something in my soul. I love what we're doing. I love that we're in it, but we should be in it. I just want the intentionality and the real distribution, opportunity acquisition, generational preparation for coming close back to what we had, deserve, and should be about. And me and John might have to go out and play cards.
Well, let me say, in regard to what both you and Dr. Ebony mentioned, we fully acknowledge, and that's partly why Bryson is in the space and why Dr. Ebony is in the space, because they represent and are part of other work that's happening in the community. And the hope is to tie that work into this work and create at some point a space where there's ongoing engagement between the various groups and create this opportunity of a collaborative moment. And that's a broader reach and certainly the goal. What we can do and what the Historic Albino Advisory Board has the opportunity to do is to steer this work. And so as you're steering this work, this is where your voice and your thoughts and your language, verbs added, Doctor, matter. And as our director, Megan Channel, just said, this will be the North Star. So you have the opportunity to derive the North Star for at least this. We understand it should be a lot larger and broader, but this is where we can lean in. So Bryson, I want to hear from you, and then I will circle back to my question, and I want everyone to ponder it now. Are there key missing elements in this statement? I caught economic, I caught rapid, I caught accelerated, I caught tangible. Are there other things? And we don't have to try to nail it tonight. That's okay. We can come back to this because I do want to talk about outcomes also. So Bryson, sir.
Yeah, so two items which I think could be added here, which is one, thinking about the pieces where we're talking about the project being committed to recognizing the stuff of the past. I think one thing that really kind of would show that the process was effective in that. And one thing that I think should be a goal of this project is a lot of the values that are expressed to ODOT through all of these different things, and through other project partners, through all the different engagements and discussions that we have as part of this process, for all those organizations to take that information and build it into their future projects, for those values to be part of future things that they do. And one of the big things that we're trying to fix here, or at least start addressing, is organizations ignoring those values and ignoring this community specifically in projects that were built, and that having those organizations no longer ignore this community, no longer ignore this community's values and projects going forward, is one of the key components of change that I think we're really looking for, kind of beyond specifically the project itself. And then kind of the second piece is looking specifically at the project. I think Leslie hit the nail on the head in that it's money, it's wealth. That's one of the key things. But there's also the feeling of belonging and feeling that the space is your community, that the area is your community, the area is your home, the area is where you belong, and that you feel welcome in the area. I think it's kind of an intangible, a bit of an intangible concept, but I think you'd be able to see it by who uses the space after the project is done, and who comes to the space after the project is done. If we end up building a project and all we get are the same gentrifying people that we've seen, gentrifying different parts of the neighborhood, then I don't think regardless of how much money we get, I don't think we can consider the project a complete success. I think it needs to be a place where people in Portland's Black community feel like they belong and they're welcome.
Would you feel that it would be, and maybe I'm reading into it, Bryson, when you were talking in the first section, your first thought, that part of the measurable or standard would be that all parties that benefit or work in this process agree to these values?
I think that'd be a good start. I mean, again, I think the big thing is kind of agreeing to these values in terms of them being kind of informative of or part of the values and policies of the organizations on all the future projects. We're thinking about the neighborhood engagement aspect of it. If we're going to build a highway in Ashland, bringing in the same process for that community as well. If we're going to do some other road project in North Portland in this community, taking what we learned from this to say, all right, these are the values, these are what we need to incorporate in, and this is how we engage people to make sure the project benefits the people who already live here.
Thank you. So you're actually speaking to also just kind of ODOT embracing these opportunities beyond just this project.
Yeah, ODOT, but again, thinking about going back to the question you just had, ODOT's not going to be the only organization connected with the various aspects of this project. And so I think it's not just an ODOT thing, but it's in all of the organizations thing.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Miss Leslie, what's good luck?
So I'm spending tonight jumping on what other folks say. So something that Bryson said spurred something in me, that when we started the housing strategy, that was the reason why I agreed to be one of the project managers and to be a part of that, because it wasn't part of my job, was because there was this notion that we were going to do things differently, that we were no longer just going to do business as usual, so that people of color, so that organizations of color, particularly Black organizations, would benefit from what we were doing in Northeast Portland. And so I think, if that's not part of this, if there's not this notion that folks are going to change how they do business going forward, that this is just not a one-off, that we're just going to do this, to pacify the Black folks, and then we're going to go back to doing crap the way we've been doing it, then this is not successful. So as Bryson hit the nail on the head, that all of us, the city, the county, metro, the state, everybody needs to commit to this is the point of change going forward so that this doesn't happen again, and so that we make sure that people aren't harmed by the stuff that we do, and we ask them how can this benefit the people that are going to be the most impacted. And if that's not happening, then we can't call this a success. If ODOT doesn't say we're going to do business different going forward, and not just because this is in the Black neighborhood or what used to be the Black neighborhood or what was considered the Black neighborhood, then they might as well just go on ahead and do what they're going to do, and let me go back to doing my job and find something else to do, because I've wasted my time.
Thank you. Let's go to the next slide then, because we're kind of jumped into outcomes. And we'll take the information that was given to us on the first slide, and it will be circled back around so we can get it to the right wordsmith it. Desired outcomes. Acknowledge the impacts of these developments on the community to earn community trust and advance short and long-term actions that aim to create community stability, economic wealth, and opportunity in Albina. Increase access to, and we have a few bullet points. Before I go to the bullet points, is that first statement acceptable, agreeable, clear enough? Does it hit the buttons? I can see you reading and processing. Thank you for weighing in. This is a great exercise. And to do it live in the moment, it's awesome work, everybody. And let me say this to you, John.
You're talking about, I'm sorry.
Yeah, let me just make a real quick statement. What we want is your authentic self. We want you. We want the authentic, and we understand that this unpacks a lot. We understand it. Trust me, I'm part of the community. I know that we're pushing the buttons and we're opening up some spaces. It's okay. This is a safe space for those spaces to be open. We can address those things without attacking individuals. We can keep our principles of agreement with how we do it, and we can still be authentic and genuine. So, Keith.
Thank you. I like a definitive, and I like something that is determinable. I don't even know if that's a word.
That's a good word. We'll go with it.
But where we say long-term actions that aim to, instead of aim to, I'd like the word will or shall.
Okay. Long-term actions that shall create community stability, economic wealth, and opportunity.
Yeah, aim to is too aspirational for me. I want something that's going to happen.
Teeth.
And I think all those same words, accelerate, those things should be in there also. It's not, it's just not some generalized something. It has to have some momentum. It's not a statement. It has to have a statement that says we accelerate this, we accept this, and we embrace it, and we want to push it in rapid form. So I don't know if that expresses that. Like I said, most things appear to be kind of lukewarm and in a comfortable position. But it doesn't add any edge to it, and it doesn't take any risk.
So where it says increase access to, would you want to put accelerate access to?
Yeah, increase nothing. I mean, what they're going to increase by 2? That doesn't mean anything to me. To increase it, could mean effort, but nothing comes from it. So there has to be something specific in that increasing. We're going to rapidly increase, or we're going to put an effort into increasing something.
Thank you very much, Keith. Was there anything else you were going to say in regard to that first statement? I appreciate your comments. Right.
I think I'm good. I'm good on the first statement.
Okay, and we're capturing the notes, so we'll be coming back with an opportunity to gather whether or not it's been heard and how it's been processed. Bryson, and then Sharon.
So I think kind of in line with what I said a minute ago, where it says acknowledge the impacts of these developments on the community. after that, I would also put and make internal organizational change to earn the community trust. Because it's one thing to just acknowledge and say, oh, we did a bad thing in the past, but that by itself isn't going to earn anybody's trust. There's got to be something that's demonstrable that that is physically done in order to earn that trust. And so I would like to see that action of internal organizational change in as part of that action to earn community trust.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Ms. Sharon.
I think I appreciate following Bryson this time, because I was playing around with if a desired outcome is to make something different, acknowledging is not enough. I mean, it's a step, but acknowledging the impacts, it's in a response to the impacts, there's certain efforts that are going to be undertaken that are going to move something different, purposeful, and beneficial to specifically to the Black community. So again, with John, with Bryson, what Leslie has said before, I need to see something stronger and more deliberate. And then I think that increasing access, for me, John spoke to this, increasing access to decision makers and decision-making processes for communities that have and still are experiencing. What is the benefit of increasing access to those who have been the decision makers if there's some measurable outcomes? You have family wage jobs, healthcare, you've named some of these, affordable housing to own and rent. What is the benefit, or what is the intentional outcome of accessing decision makers and the processes if we can't name something there? If you put me in front of somebody who's considered a decision maker, what is going to be the expected outcome that I can actually see, and there'll be evidence of it, and it'll be longer term? And so I don't have the words for that, but increasing access alone, sitting me at a table, taking us into a room, we may be there, but what is it that we went there for, and how do we measure what we came out with? And I know those of you can do that better right now in the moment.
Thank you. Thanks for calling that out. Dr. Amato, Dr. Ebony had some comments here in the chat that I'll refer to. We need intentional symbolic mobility, upward mobility. And then Keith mentioned this will be a template for all projects going forward. Equity lens is how we look at everything. And that was, as Leslie was talking, in regard to all the comments, the clarifying comments that she made. I won't by any means try to recapitulate them. So, Keith, is that your hand up again? No?
Well, yes, and because I thought you were talking about the initial statement there that begins with acknowledge, because when we get down to the shaded area, a couple of those bullets I have issue with. I've had the second bullet. I've had many jobs throughout my lifetime, but I've only had one career, and and so jobs are temporary and short term, and so I would rather see that language say family wage career opportunities, affordable housing to own and rent. I think, we're looking at ownership, not renting. Renting pays somebody else's bill. And so, and I, in the survey, I responded to that as well, that I'm more concerned about home ownership than I am about folks renting. Anybody can rent. And like I say, the family wage career opportunities, not jobs. Jobs are temporary. When this project is over, then you go on to another project. So, but if you don't have a career or a career path, then you're going to continue to work jobs, and there's not going to be much of a future in it and much stability in it either.
Appreciate that. Thank you for the comment. Dr. Ebony, did I see your hand?
Here I come. So I have just really quick, just expanding on the affordable housing to own and rent. That's been a point of contention for me through growth. I used to sit on an affordable housing board for 8 years and understanding the negative impact of that. There's a direct correlation to generational wealth and home ownership. And a lot of people who build these big affordable housing developments, the intention is good. So I'm not minimizing the effort in trying to provide a solution, but the damage is again long term, and there's a lot of facets here. So I apologize to the people who aren't Black, who may not understand some of the woes that we deal with in a community, because it comes in all different types of forms in our housing, our education, our and our food, you know, in our communities. It comes, it's systemic. But affordable housing, one, is poverty driven development. And until we get out of the framework of just always kind of easily, oh, let's build affordable housing, we will continue to really, again, going back to that 228 years, that gap is going to be at a turtle's pace, at a snail's pace, in order to minimize that gap. We need to have, you know, instead of building an affordable housing model, use the Habitat for Humanity model. There is ways that people can get deeds on their home and have a safe place for their families to stay past that home, or be able to sell that home and reap the rewards of the equity and go put on a bigger home or whatever. And that's really one of the key foundations to realizing generational wealth. When I was growing up here in Portland, there used to be a commercial, when you own your own home, you own your own bank. It was like this little arcane commercial, this little guy, but there's so much truth in that. And so I just am not even having served on a board for 8 years, to actually despising the notion of affordable housing as a pacifier to the Black community, that where we were displaced and we can come back and rent, and where we owned homes, and those developments are cash cows. The people who are reaping the benefits of those developments are not a reflection of ourselves. That's all.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. John, sir. You're still on mute, sir.
You know, as the business association over here, Hope, one of the things that I open up with when I meet a new person that's interested in business and so on and so on, and one of the things I get clear about is that we're not a socialist country, we're a capitalist country. Okay, and one of the greatest human ripoffs that we as Black people experience in discrimination in this country is being locked out of the education and knowledge of capitalism. Okay, the very foundation and nature of this country is rooted in land ownership and taxation. You know, there's no greater foundation for developing wealth in this country than that. That's what this country has developed itself on. So the very foundation of it is rooted in taxation and land ownership. So we keep talking about all those other things that divert away from wealth. All that does is continue to divert us away from any kind of real economic growth and stability. We cannot, as she just mentioned, we cannot find growth in rental and you know, ain't nothing wrong with a good job, but I think having your own business and having and understanding the corporate structure of America is when you begin to understand how you are now competing for assets and opportunities of wealth in this country. But all this other stuff that we keep talking about diverts away from that. You know, that stuff around rentals and, you know, finding some minimum wage jobs and all that kind of stuff. So it's just remedial. It doesn't accelerate us above just the turtle mentality. It doesn't allow us to be an eagle. So that's just my thoughts on that.
I appreciate it. Thank you. So let me ask a question. Is there a suggestion to remove affordable rental as it relates to housing?
Yeah, because I think it's a passive thought process that reinforces the fact that you can remain in that space. But the whole idea for us to accelerate any growth and any rapid economic growth in our families, in our community, we have to begin to think beyond that.
So I'm going to jump in and disagree a little bit, because there are thousands of people that cannot afford to buy a house right now. and they want an affordable place to live in Northeast Portland. We have almost 6,000 people that have applied for the preference policy. And I'm not saying that home ownership is not the key to wealth generation, but Black folks want some place to live in Northeast Portland that they can afford. And so for us to say no to affordable housing, that means that they're stuck trying to find something on the market because there's clearly not enough places for people to live or for us to be able to buy land to build enough houses for everybody that wants to live in Northeast Portland. So I understand the sentiment of what everybody's saying, that affordable housing can be a trap, and it has been a trap for a lot of families, just like welfare, just like food stamps, you know, generations of people being on welfare and then they don't see any way out of it. But that comes from education. It's not just by saying, no, we're not going to build affordable housing because we want people to be homeowners, because there has to be a link. There has to be a bridge from one to the other.
Let me respond to that, Hope. Could I respond to Leslie?
Absolutely.
You know, Leslie, I'm in agreement with you on that. But as you well know, I've been a part of that whole process. But what I'm implying here is the end result. And as long as the construct or the pathway that we build is a pathway that allows people to grow within that construct. So if affordable housing is an arrival point, then that they're on some kind of track to continue to move them and accelerate them beyond that reality. So as long as that construct is moving to forward and allowing people with those options to develop if they want to, then I'm all for the first stage and entry stages on anything. But as long as the long-term goal is to create generational wealth, then we're obligated to teach them how to do that.
And I want to put a flag in that. Let's hold on to that. Ms. Sharon, I see your hand and I'll call on you in just a moment. We'll put a flag in that one, I think, because what I hear in the circle is that the goal is to move people into that place of how we are generating wealth. But we also understand the value of helping people be secure in that meantime. So, appreciate that. Sharon.
I really appreciate the conversation and the fact that Leslie Goodloe elevated that conversation. I appreciate when we say affordable housing. Not everyone who is going into, or I'm in affordable housing, I'm a legacy child, which is how I had all the points because my family's homes were taken. I don't qualify through the other criteria for others. I don't need the subsidization as some people have because they don't have. I made it into Northeast preference because my family's home was taken and then taken again. So I want some kind of balance when we say affordable housing that allows ownership and not just ownership by developers. I can speak with great authority about what happens when so many developers who do not look like me, major developers, have these relationships where they're building affordable housing, which tells me I should be investing in affordable housing because they're getting land benefits. They're getting incredible subsidization. I know that. And I don't want it to be the only place because I want some kind of deliverable, especially for those who had something taken that had value, that over a period of time, they would have accrued more and more equity and interest. So I just want, as Dr. Amato, as I heard her, this dependency on talking about affordable housing for those who are dependent and need the bridge is not the only piece about affordable housing. And I'm disturbed when I see major developers who talk about this is the business of the new business and continue to get these contracts to build in our community where the housing was taken that was a home. And so I want to figure out, because I'm enraged each day when I know who the major developers are, who have been able to acquire this track and are really feeding at the trough. I want some, and then deny us any opportunity to go back to reclaiming, and acquiring. So I want us to figure out, doesn't have to be in the moment, but it can't be defaults to affordable housing that means apartments only. So where's that balance? I'm willing to struggle to find out how that could be manifested.
Thank you very much. This discussion is robust. We anticipated that it would be. Knew that this is it's not even hairline. It's the reality of the experience for those of us who've lived here in this city. It speaks to the chords in our hearts. And I want to say thank you for how you showed up in the space and leaning in on the conversation. Thank you very much for that. Is there anything, and we've kind of done some wordsmithing, and I appreciate the fact that we've identified making some adjustments to that first bullet point. Is there anything that's missing in this section? Is there anything that should be added under these specific outcomes on outcome number 1? And I do realize we're at 6:20. We were intending to have had and gone through the discussion. We've got one more outcome. So if you'll bear with me and lean in for a little while longer, I want to work through that. Next slide.
I know education is general, but I know it's been touched on by a lot of folks in different areas. Because in that, we don't talk about business, we don't talk about financial literacy. And those are, to me, subsets of that educational piece. And I just don't want that to be lost on just general education. Because financial, like John said, that we're in a capitalistic society. Financial literacy is it has to be first and foremost in regards to education if you're going to go into business, and if you're going to buy a home, and if you're going to live from day to day.
I agree.
You have to have that understanding.
The number of people that we've met with that have never even looked at their credit score, that have no idea about how that even works, that those types of things are, that we need to teach people that that's what they need to do in order to become a homeowner, to become a business owner. If you don't even know what your credit score is or how to even look at your credit score, then, you're way far behind everybody else.
Thank you.
Absolutely. What I would ask you to do, how you can help me, Keith, and others, as you think through, because this isn't the last conversation. So as you think through the various areas for this work, the survey you had, even you can respond and add that other information in, and we'll capture it, and we'll be circling back. If you go to the next slide for me. Provide opportunities for wealth generation through agency partnerships to provide a forward-leaning project where Black-owned businesses can thrive and spur pathways for wealth generation. The idea here is calling out specifically Black-owned business opportunities. That's the idea of that statement. Does that say it well? Does it say strong enough? Are there missing elements in that statement? So providing opportunities for wealth generation through agency partnerships, specifically through ODOT and then other agency partnerships to provide forward-leaning project where Black-owned businesses can thrive and spur pathways for wealth generation. It's highlighting Black-owned businesses.
What is forward-leaning? What does that mean?
It's a great question. Megan, would you like to jump in at all and speak to forward-leaning?
Sure. I think the intent behind forward-leaning here is really around that doing business differently, acknowledging that the way that we have done business as government agencies in the past has not been the right way to achieve the outcomes that we're hoping for. So that is what my understanding of kind of the intent here. And as I'm articulating that, I will throw out there that I'm not sure that that's the right way to describe it.
Yeah.
I can see the wheels turning. Appreciate it. Okay, as you ponder that one, let's jump. Andrew, you jumped ahead at the beginning, but here we are. We made it. Told you we'd circle back. We'd come back to it. So we're pulling it out of the parking lot and elevating it into the conversation. to use development opportunities to foster public and private partnerships. You said, can that be nonprofit partnerships as well? That was the question. Megan, would you like to lean in here on what you?
Sure. I think the answer is yes. I think that it can be a nonprofit in there as well. I think really, again, the intent behind this outcome is that it's how the transportation infrastructure can support what the future development on the highway cover, around the highway cover, within the neighborhood and the community ultimately becomes, and whether that's public, private, nonprofit, or another type of partnership. I think it's all on the table.
Would it be fair, Megan, to say that really what was trying to be articulated here is about doing business differently?
Yep. It's that intentionality, doing it differently, acknowledging that the way of the business of the past has not been good.
And so each of these bullet points are really to illustrate the thoughts around doing business differently, and specifically to support Black-owned, African-American-owned business opportunities within this project. And so these bullet points that you see are to articulate that in various ways. So by providing opportunities for wealth generation, to use this development opportunity to support public and private, to maximize disadvantaged business enterprise opportunities at every phase of the project by building capacity, addressing specific minority contracting needs, and then to benefit those historically harmed through the actions taken. Is there anything else you would add, Megan, that I didn't highlight?
No, I feel like you captured it really well and bringing in a lot of what I've been hearing from our HAB members tonight as well.
I guess I have a little, with that first bullet, I just don't like the word can. Again, I like the word will or shall. It's more definitive. We're talking about outcomes. I don't want, can sounds like an opportunity, where will and shall sounds like a success to me. It's something that has happened. We're determining that something is happening, not something that is going to happen or may happen.
Might happen. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Any others? Would you weigh in on language? Are you satisfied knowing then the context of these statements being the agency saying we are doing business differently, and this is how we're doing business differently by these kinds of things, which also leans in to the metric a little bit, leans into some measurable ways. How can you know? Well, did this happen?
Well, I got a little bit of a problem with that. I got a little bit of a problem with that forward leaning. It should be more descriptive than that. That's just too general and generic.
Thank you.
So, is there something there that can be a solid that can fit there, in terms of an action? I think I'd suggest changing that forward leaning stuff.
You did. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And could you drop the A in front of forward leaning and add a S to project?
To provide forward leaning projects where Black businesses will thrive and spread pathways for wealth generation. And then changing forward leaning to provide blank projects where.
Yeah, it holds them accountable a little bit more. That forward leaning allows that too wide an open door of interpretation.
I see in the chat, intentional, that's an impossible. Provide intentional projects.
And to chime in just on like what's missing, I'm just kind of surprised there's no metrics overall, including either of the outcomes as a way to hold ODOT and other agencies accountable to this aim. Because, in any kind of grant or development, they always share some kind of numbers or percentages of a goal. And I feel that's really what's missing. And
Good call.
yeah, they need to, I'm surprised ODOT didn't use the tools and data that they have to show us some numbers, and then we can chime in on the numbers as well to hold y'all and others accountable. That's the only thing I feel that's really missing.
Well, I appreciate you mentioning that, Andrew. I'm sorry, I didn't want to overspeak you. I appreciate you mentioning that. These were set up through the Executive Steering Committee. So ODOT did not create any of the values or the statements that you've seen. The Executive Steering Committee initially crafted the document. And now that, again, the sunsetting of the Executive Steering Committee has happened, and this work is being transitioned to the Historic Albina Advisory Board, most appropriately, here's the opportunity for you then to say, let's dig down a little deeper. Let's tighten it up a little more. Let's make the frame more secure and clear as it relates to how we want to see these values lived into. So,
and Dr. Holt, I'll lean in here as well. Andrew, you are far ahead, and there will be an opportunity for us as we smooth out the aim and the outcomes. There's a whole discussion, which I know will take a little bit longer, about what are the performance metrics and what does that look like. So if you, I'll use as an example, the COAC that is specifically focused really around maybe this outcome and DBE opportunity and workforce, and really being able to pin down, we want to be able to exercise or increase by such a percent. We want to be able to identify so much percentage of Black-owned firms receive business, and how many will be the mini CMGCs, and move forward. So we are drilling down to that point that you're talking about.
Thanks, Erica. I appreciate you clarifying that. Ms. Gary Smith, sure.
Just a quick observation from this conversation. I recognize that ODOT might, because I don't know it to be sure, might have wanted to err on not providing numbers and things that would sound after the experience we've come through of the work, that they were either dictating or setting a particular standard. I recognize from having looked at the executive steering body who those folks are, who are accustomed to dealing with quantifiable, number kind of driven proposals and projects. So I just would think Megan has been so supportive and has been the one to speak to us for them, that I'm accustomed to seeing these major bureaus, departments use numbers, even if we push back and either change or kind of work with the numbers. And so I don't want them to not do what they normally do or what I've experienced, that they do name or they have some idea. And then we can work with that. I don't want that to come out, at least for me, that they lay out in front of us things that are fairly, that are generic or that are subject to interpretation. Because as I heard Erica just say, we're going to have an opportunity where we're going to talk about our metrics and the kinds of things that will be able to be advanced and measurable for us. But I would like them to continue to do that part of what they've done historically, and not back off of giving me something that I can challenge or I can agree with, because it felt a little different. Although I really like this, it was devoid of anything that I could grab onto, and then I could offer my own kind of thinking of what the numbers should look like or what the numbers should be. And so I love this exercise, and I don't want to delay it any further, but I would have liked them to do what they are skilled at doing, is providing numbers like they do for budgeting, or telling us how much covers are going to cost versus what they were expecting to pay out. I kind of like that. I know what my lane is, and I want them to be able to be in theirs. And then that's when we work it out.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. You're 100% right. And this is just a reminder that the conversation that we've been waiting to tee up for you is the right one to be teeing up for you sooner rather than later, that gets into those performance measures. So we'll be sure to return in short order with that.
Well, it's a great conversation tonight. There will be other opportunities. Obviously, we're going to be circling back around. Thanks everyone for leaning in to our dialogue to this point. Can you go forward in our slides? Let's go down to slide 73. This is just for your point of reference. We won't have this discussion tonight. We're past our time, but we will be circling back to talk about the board charter and the board responsibilities. It's part of the values. The next slide, please. Also, our board charter update responsibilities continue. We will go through that portion in order for us to make sure that everyone understands and has a chance to weigh in on your influence in this process. If we could go then to next steps. Miss Erica.
Thank you so much, Dr. Holt. If you'll bring me to the next slide, please. Thank you all. I always know that I can count on you to fully engage in the conversation, to authentically represent yourselves, your families, this community well. I'm very proud to be a part with you and share in this. Hopefully it'll elevate past an exercise, and there will be an opportunity for us to really affect institutional and change, and that our partners at the Rose Quarter Project and at ODOT will be proud to have been stretched to be accountable and to help meet the needs of the community. As we move forward, we are going to, as I mentioned, have an opportunity to hear from the project team and for us to give our feedback, Ms. Sharon, in regards to how the project performance measures are shaped. And so I look forward to diving into that conversation with you all. We are going to continue to have the conversation with James and his colleagues in regards to the urban design and how our collective input, energy, history can help shape the highway infrastructure design in those areas that he shared earlier. And then at the beginning of James's presentation, he talked about this board being able to give input on the local street solutions. And so we look further into that. Community impacts, I think, is really, really key, and how and who and at what points should this project be further represented into the community? Who are the key stakeholders besides this body? As you all mentioned, there should be more input, right? Because there is a wide perspective in the Black community, and that we give all an opportunity, that you all are helping to encourage us to engage other community leaders and members to give input on all of those various aspects. So we'll be looking to you to help us plug into those areas. And then how the 30% design package is shaped. We're going to be looking to you for your input there and getting feedback and report outs from the design team. So really, next slide. With that, I want to extend my thanks to you for always bringing your full authentic self to the conversation. I know it can be uncomfortable, but I really do appreciate your willingness to even push past triggers of harms to collectively move this project forward. I think it's a benefit, not just to this project, but it will be for generations to come in our community. So with that, thank you. I look forward to meeting with you. Dr. Holt, thank you so much for helping to facilitate with me this evening as I continue to recover. I appreciate you all, and I look forward to talking with you all. Have a good evening.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, Ms. Leslie. Good night, everybody.
Thank you all.